Hello everybody, my name is Jack McKenzie, and joining me on the mic is the wonderful Chris Whitfield and Caitlin Penny commentary, and you are listening to episode number 2 of the Motorsport Recently Show. Guys, welcome along.
Thank you very much, it's good to be back.
Chris, how are you doing? He's giving us the winking eyes again. He's forgotten the fact that this is a podcast and an audio-driven platform. You have a face for radio, Chris.
Love you too.
What? I'm gonna have to edit that out. Oh dear.
Well, we're still going. Hi, Chris. You doing okay?
Hello. I'm alright.
Good.
Well, this is the Rolex 24 at Daytona preview episode of Motorsport Recently. This is something that we've been doing for. We've done it a few times over the years, preview shows. We did one of the first recordings that we actually did together was a Daytona 24-hour preview show. We don't have too much time for small talk really this week because we've got so much to get through. Because when we first did the preview back in 2019, we had 47 cars on the IMSA grid, and now we have 61 cars for this year, which I believe is a record for the Rolex 24.
Yeah, it's fantastic stuff. I mean, one of the best things about doing this program again is it is kind of harkening back to where it all started with Motorsport Recently. I think it was actually the first episode of Motorsport Recently was the first Daytona 24-hour preview that we did. So it's kind of relevant that we're coming back, and in just the second show that we've done, maybe the first proper show if you consider the first one to be a bit of a pilot episode, we're going back to the Daytona 24 hours, but it's coming up. It's a good time of year, and I'm so looking forward to seeing it this year because, my goodness, 61 cars in the entry list, that's a jam-packed racetrack.
It absolutely is. And I think what we did for the first preview show is I don't think that was an official episode of Motorsport Recently. That was just something that we did, and then the podcast kind of came from that. But you are right, it is going back to the roots. Normally what we do for these previews on the channel, whether it's just me or whether it's all three of us together, is we go through and pick out some notable entrants, and that would usually cover about half the field. But because we've got so many, and there are so many just incredible entries in the field, we're only really getting the sort of most interesting entrants, because if we covered them all, we would really be sitting here all day, basically. We'd be here for hours.
This wouldn't be a podcast, it would be an audiobook.
An audiobook, yes, that's true. That's very, very true. So I don't think we've got too much time to hang around. We've got the Raw this weekend, so we're recording on Thursday my time and Wednesday for my colleagues in the Northern Hemisphere. Chris?
I have the name for this episode.
Yes, what is that?
This is the show before the roar before the 24.
The show before the Raw before the 24, yes. Thinking Man. I like that as a title. That is fantastic.
Catchy.
Brilliant. So yes, we've got the Raw this weekend, and then we have the real event next weekend. We thought we'd get this out a little bit early because I didn't want to miss this one on the off chance that we somehow missed it next weekend. Should we begin with GTP?
Okay, going from a slightly odd angle. So top to the bottom, GTP. I see you've listed all 12 of the GTP cars in the show notes today. But would you mind if I started out with my predictions, just to boot this off?
I think we should probably have this at the end. I think we should have predictions at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
We should probably have spoken about this before, but that's my fault.
Yes, we should have. We should have. We are certainly not. We're a little bit rusty on the old podcasting business. It should be put that second episode back after 5 years, by the way. I think what I sort of want to do is I want to go top to bottom through the classes, and we do predictions. And I've listed all of the GTP cars because I think every single one of those is sort of noteworthy to talk about, because those are our contenders for the overall race victory, unless something sort of interesting happens, which can happen, but it's not always the most likely scenario. Should we begin with the number 5 car.
Okay, so the number 5 car, of course, is the Proton competition car. That is a Porsche, a beautiful car. One of the kind of like basic GTP shapes. It was one of the first GTP cars that I really saw in action. And that is a competitive lineup. I mean, they're all competitive. They all stand a very, very good chance of winning. But you've got Neil Yanni, Tristan Vautier, Nico Pino, who is the silver of the lineup. He's quite new and relatively unproven. And then only just officially announced for that car is Julian Andlauer. So recently that he's still not on the IMSA.com list for the entry list. That is a competitive lineup. We're going to be saying that about all of the GTPs, and I think the real metric of how well they're going to be doing is how well Nico Pino adapts to the 24-hour style of racing and how well he adapts to GTP.
Well, I don't think that Nico Pino he's not exactly inexperienced. I mean, he is certainly the youngest driver on that lineup at only 20 years old, driver from Chile. But so from what I do know about him, he's a pretty fast driver. So while young, not necessarily a weak addition to that lineup. Chris, any thoughts on that?
I think it's pretty solid. Neil Yanni and Tristan Vautier, I believe, are the full season drivers for this lineup. And I believe they are continuing with Mustang sampling, if I remember correctly.
It should be. I'd imagine so, yes.
And
I haven't seen
course,
this year's car, but yeah.
And of course, I have to say that the Mustang sampling colors are just, fantastic. Looks great in Mustang sampling colors.
I think we are black. We're back in the black and gold for another year running for 2025. I don't think they've really had any major changes to delivery on that front. So that will be a good looking car, privateer Porsche, which is sort of interesting to see. You know, it's always difficult competing against the factory cars, which we'll talk about next, but certainly not an uncompetitive lineup, and it's a GTP car, so it will be in the conversation for the overall victory. Speaking of our factory cars, I think we should move on to car number 6 and car number 7. So Cam Jam, this is of course the sort of sports car partnership between Matty Campbell and Mathieu Jaminet. They are going to be reunited in the number 6 Penske Porsche, and they're going to be joined by Kevin Estre. So those two were last together when they were racing for FAF in the number 9 car in, I think it was GTD Pro in 2022. It was either GTD or GTD. No, it was GTD Pro. And in the number 7 car, that's going to be Felipe Nasr, Nick Tandy, and Lawrence Van Tour. And the number 7 is, of course, the race-winning car from last year.
Yeah, so it's worth noting that with the factory Porsches, because they are a factory team, they of course have the access to the best drivers and the best mechanics and the best people. And as a result, every single one of their drivers in those lineups is platinum rated. Mathieu Jaminet, Matt Campbell, Kevin Estre, Felipe Nasr, Nick Tandy, and Lawrence Van Tour. That is an absolutely formidable lineup. Obviously, you have the driver ratings for people who aren't aware of how sports car racing works, where you have platinum, gold, silver, and bronze. In GTP, the top class, there is no limit as to the number of platinum drivers you can run. So long, obviously, you can only run 4 drivers per car, but you know, all of those can be platinum in GTP, and you don't have to run a gold or a silver or anyone like that. And of course, because Porsche Penske Motorsport are the factory Porsche team, they have the full platinum lineup. And I think that either one of those cars could and probably will contend for the overall win.
Chris.
Yes, I think that they're going to be the favorites coming in. They, of course, won last year, and I think it might be the 6 car this time. That could be.
Going for the 6.
Yeah, I'm going for the 6 of those two.
Of those two, I think, yeah, Porsche certainly picked it up in the second year of the 963 program. I think, as we'll sort of all remember, 2023 wasn't exactly the best year for Porsche, really. I don't think. Well, I still think it was good. It was a good year, but it probably wasn't the year that Porsche would have wanted to open up the 963 program, and they certainly picked it up in 2024, and I think you guys are both right. They are going to be a force to be reckoned with. Anything more to say on Penske Porsche?
Not for now, but I am looking forward to seeing how they run because, like I said, those Porsches are beautiful and very well prepared.
I think they'll be at the sharp end of the grid, for sure.
They surely have to be. Yeah, they're definitely at the sharp end of the field. Another team that I think is going to be at the sharp end of the field is Wayne Taylor Racing, and this sort of marks a bit of a return for Wayne Taylor Racing to General Motors. They are once again running the Cadillacs, back with Cadillac for the first time in a number of years, certainly since the DPI era. The number 10 car, they're bringing 2 cars to the race. The number 10 car will be Ricky Taylor, Felipe Albuquerque, Will Stevens, and Brendan Hartley. And the number 40 car will be driven by Jordan Taylor, Louis Delatraz, Alex Lynn, and Kamui Kobayashi.
Yeah, so it's worth noting with the number 10 Cadillac that this harkens back to the first Daytona 24 Hours that I ever watched back in 2017. That was won by the number 10 Cadillac, which was a slightly different lineup. Well, it was a very different lineup back then. The only similarity that they had was Ricky Taylor. I'd like to give a quick shout out to my friend Xanthia if she listens to this. She's definitely a Ricky Taylor fan. I think that the number 10, since Chris has already said his prediction for the win, I'm going to say the number 10 is probably my prediction for the win overall.
I didn't exactly say the winner. I didn't actually predict anything. I just said they'd be at the sharp end.
Okay, I thought you said they were your favorites for the win, but
well, they have to be the favorites to win, though.
Okay, well, revealing my cards very early on, I'm going to say that the number 10 is my prediction for the win. They've got 2 Formula 1 drivers in Brendan Hartley and Will Stevens. They've, of course, got the extremely experienced Felipe Albuquerque, and they've got Ricky Taylor, of course, the Taylor from the Wayne Taylor Racing lineup, who I think is going to carry that Cadillac to the front of the grid.
Well, it's not just Ricky Taylor that makes up the Taylor components. So obviously, Wayne Taylor is the team owner, but then Jordan Taylor is in the number 40 car. But you are right, though. So Wayne Taylor, if you'll remember back in 2017, you mentioned 2017. That was the first year of the DPI category, the category that came before GTP. Wayne Taylor Cadillac were an absolute powerhouse in those first few years of racing in DPI. They haven't raced a Cadillac GTP, but it is quite interesting to see that partnership back, obviously for the full season, but with a focus on the Rolex 24, that has historically been a fantastic force to be reckoned with.
And I believe those are actually the ex-Chip Ganassi Cadillac chassis that they're running.
I'd imagine so, yes. I'd imagine so, because obviously Chip Ganassi, they've sort of pulled out of the Cadillac program. So are they moving anywhere else, or is that them done for sports cars at the moment? I feel like they went somewhere.
Not sure, but I'm hearing rumors that they might go to that like I said again, rumors. I'm hearing rumors that they might be possibly tied with Genesis.
It's got nothing to do with Fleetwood Mac, does it? Had to be there. It was Genesis last week, and now it's Fleetwood Mac this week.
Listen. Rumors is a banger of an album. I'm just
no, it
gonna say that.
absolutely is.
Best of all time. One of the best of all time.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
fantastic.
absolutely, it is.
Right, before we go down a music rabbit hole, we should probably move on because it is a return to IMSA and a BMW debut for Kevin Magnussen, who will be driving the number 24 BMW alongside Philip Eng, Dries Van Toor, and Raffaele Marcello. That's, of course, not the only BMW GTP. There is the 25 car as well, which will be driven by Marco Wittmann, Sheldon de van der Linde, Robin Freins, and Rene Rast.
Yeah, K-Mag brings the star quality to that team. He will absolutely, there'll be people in the YouTube chat cheering for him and people all over the place, looking on specifically because Kevin Magnussen is in this race, not too long after finishing his Formula One career, because let's face it, his Formula One career is finished now. But it is not just him in that lineup. We have to remember that that all of those other drivers, I believe it's another case of every single driver in that lineup is platinum rated, and I've just looked that up and confirmed that is absolutely the case. I am a little pessimistic though, I have to admit, from what I've seen of BMW so far in the GTP era. They've just been a little bit underwhelming. I think that car might be just a little tricky to set up, because you can never quite tell where they're going to be coming into a race weekend, and actually predicting them always seems to be a bit of a fool's errand.
They might be a dark horse, I think. I think they could be a dark horse, just because if you remember the last not the last one, but one of the endurance races that they've won was Indianapolis back last year, and they were if they have the if they have the correct strategy and everything falls into place and the slot is in the channel, so to speak, to use a figment from slot car racing, then
it works.
If they have all the right nuts and all the right bolts, then they'll be I think they could play spoiler.
I think that's a pretty fair assessment, actually. So, yeah, I think BMW, I'd say their results in the first couple of years have been pretty mixed, but they have had some sort of standout results where the car's done very well. Looking back at the drivers for a moment, I'm still not used to seeing Raffaele Marcello driving a BMW. To me, he's always a Mercedes man. I'm not quite used to him being in a BMW. But all very strong drivers on that list.
In fairness, though, Raffaele Marcello, that man is a bullet behind the wheel.
So fast.
Anything
In fairness, I'm not used to seeing him in a Mercedes. I still think of him in his GP2 Formula 2 days, so,
fair enough. That's sort of understandable. But yeah, okay, so what we're saying, BMW dark horses for Daytona this year?
Dark horse.
Possibly dark horses.
A sleeper.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to another Cadillac team then. We've got the number 31 car. So Jack Aitken, correct me if I'm wrong, is the only remaining driver for the Whelen Cadillac team from last year. This is, of course, the Action Express car. Still the number 31, still with Whelen backing, and he will be joined by Earl Bamber, Frederick Vesti, and Felipe Drugovich.
Yeah, so this is quite with the exception of Earl Bamber and Jack Aitken, this is quite an inexperienced lineup when it comes to endurance racing. They've all done the 24 Hours of Le Mans, I believe, but the likes of Vesti and Drugovich, obviously quite young, they haven't done the Daytona 24 Hours before. This team absolutely knows how to prepare a car. They were second overall last year. So in terms of the actual team, the mechanics, the setup, they will have that down, right from the beginning. And they definitely stand a chance, because pretty much everyone stands a chance. But I think that the only certainty is that all of the drivers are excellent drivers individually. Whether or not they can, set up a car together and gel as a team and have the right dynamic, I guess we'll just have to wait and see how that goes.
Okay, Chris, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think that the 31 might actually be the favorite for the championship at the end of the season. Because you got Jack Aiken and a Cadillac factory driver, Earl Bamber, who replaces the very quick but sometimes very fragile Pipo Derani in that lineup. Those two might actually be like favorites for the overall championship. As for the 24, don't count them out. Don't count them out, but at the same time, if they're in victory lane, it would not surprise me.
Yeah. Actually, that's sort of my, I think both with Wayne Taylor Racing and Action Express, there are huge changes going on at those teams at the moment. And with change in racing, be it good changes or whatever it may be, there is usually a sort of teething period. And to have that teething period at the Daytona 24 Hours is probably not something you really want. Personally, I think it would be better to go into an endurance race like that with everything already gelled and everything already working. So to have an almost complete lineup change for Action Express and to have a car change for Wayne Taylor Racing might put them on the back foot a little bit.
You say that, but it has been you say that, but you never know with
You never know.
And I'm lying a little bit down because my foot has fallen asleep.
Which one is it? The right foot or the left foot?
Throttle foot.
Throttle foot. Oh, that's not good.
I'm going to tell you guys a story just quickly. Before this broadcast started, Jack was saying to Chris, could you give it a go, like sitting up? Just a little bit of professionalism. Chris, you gave it a good go. I appreciate your sacrifice, but the old man needs his rest.
So if you'd like to sponsor us, we'll buy Chris a desk for the next episode. Right. On that note, I think we should move on to some Acuras. So we're going to start with Meyer Shank Racing. Now, Meyer Shank Racing with Curb Agajanian, they are back in the IMSA Weathertech Sportscar Championship after a year's hiatus. And they are bringing with them the number 60 car, which will be driven by Tom Blomqvist, Colin Brown, Scott Dixon, and Felix Rosenquist. And the number 93, which is a brand new car for this outfit. They used to run with just the 60. Now they've got the 93 as well, which will be driven by Renger van der Zande, Nick Yellerly, Alex Palou, and Kaku Ota, who is a fairly new talent in the world of international sports car racing. He's a Honda factory driver. And this this year's Rolex 24 at Daytona marks something of a return for Meyer Shank Racing. I don't want to dredge up the past here, but 2023 was a very controversial year for that team. But they're now back, and I hope the tyre pressures are correct for this year.
Yeah, so I'd like to point out the driver lineup in the 60 and just how much Daytona experience and success they have had. Obviously, Tom Blomqvist has won Daytona twice overall, with the inclusion of 2023. He's only done Daytona 3 times. He won it twice overall, and then he was second last year. That's a pretty impressive rep sheet, Then of course you have Colin Braun, who has won it 3 times in class, one of those being an overall win. And then of course Scott Dixon, the legendary Scott Dixon, 3-time overall winner, 4-time class winner at Daytona. Once again, absolutely formidable lineup. The only driver in that field who is not a Daytona 24-hour winner, or in that lineup who's not a Daytona 24-hour winner, is Felix Rosenqvist. But of course we know how good Felix Rosenqvist is in endurance racing through his other ventures, and of course how good he is in racing in general. As for the other lineup, they do of course have a Daytona 500 winner, Renger van der Zande, incredible racer, 2-time winner.
Daytona 24.
Yeah,
Daytona 24
Daytona
hour.
500 winner.
is that
I
what I
was going to
said?
say Daytona 500. That will be in a few
Sorry,
weeks.
I meant Daytona 24-hour winner.
Daytona 24.
Yeah, Rank van der Zande, who of course won it twice, 2019 and 2020. Um, my eye was caught by Nick Yellerly because I had no idea that he had moved from BMW. That is how out of the loop that I am.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking about Nick yesterday actually because I was watching an old GP3 race that had him in it. But yeah, I had no idea that he had moved away from BMW, and this is the first that I've learnt of that. So I guess welcome to the team, Nick Yellerly, and we'll see how that goes for him.
Well, I actually think the 93 car is actually a collection of really sort of brand new drivers for Meyershank Racing, is my understanding. So Renger van der Zande, where was he before? I'm trying to remember where he was last year.
According to Wikipedia, he was racing for Cadillac last year.
He was racing for Cadillac. I think was Alex Palou. I think he was doing some stuff for Chip Ganassi a couple of years ago for Cadillac as well, if I seem to remember correctly. I'm going to have a look at that very quickly.
Obviously, IndyCar champion several times over as
IndyCar
well.
champion, yeah, that's certainly things. So yes, he was. He was with Cadillac was Alex Palou before this year. So two Cadillac drivers joining the lineup. Nick Yellerly, obviously from BMW. So really the only one with any Honda connection at all is Kaku Ota, but he hasn't raced a GTP car yet, is my understanding.
Yeah, I've never heard of him, genuinely. I don't really follow Super GT. I see he's got some Super GT starts, so maybe I should have heard of him. Genuinely have never even heard of Kaku Ota before.
Yeah, I have to admit that was the first for me. But yeah, certainly, I think we all definitely know the drivers of the number 60 lineup. That's all very experienced sports car talent there. Scott Dixon, bit of a new driver for Meyershank. He's done races with Cadillac before, but new driver for Meyershank as well. But I think certainly contenders for this year.
I'm excited about the next car, Jack. Should we move on?
Yes, if you're that excited, I'd like to hear what you have to say about the number 63 Lamborghini.
It's a Lamborghini, mamma mia. Yeah, this is the Daytona debut, of course, for the Lamborghini SC63, the number 63, of course. And I am very excited to see how this car goes. The Lamborghini has not had too much success in GTP just yet. It's had a little bit of a tough start to its career. That is no fault of the drivers. The driver lineup this year, and this is extremely exciting, is Mirko Bortolotti, one of the best Lamborghini drivers of all time. Romain Grosjean, of course, IndyCar driver, ex-Formula 1 driver, and again, experienced endurance driver who has done the Daytona 24 Hours twice before. Daniel Kvyat, another former Formula 1 driver. And then, of course, Eduardo Mortara, one of the best sports car racers in the world ever. So, as far as lineups go, you can't really do much better than that from a driving standpoint. It's the car that's the real question mark on that one. But whatever happens, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to sound amazing. It's going to look amazing. And I really think, if Lamborghini has brought the necessary upgrades to that car, the necessary support to that car, then that could be a real dark horse. I can genuinely see that car. I don't know if I don't know about contending for the win, but there are universes out there where that car is gonna be up there.
Chris, any thoughts on Lamborghini?
Especially if it rains. In Indianapolis, it showed a lot of pace during the wet part of the Battle of the Bricks, and could play spoiler. Also, I want to say on the Meyershank entries, the 60 is actually the Meyershank entry, funded by run by them. The 93, which has Phillips 66 back on the car, for the first time since Casey Mears ran in a Busch Series car with that sponsorship, is actually run by HRC US, if I remember correctly. that team's actually run by Honda themselves.
Okay, that's interesting.
And
That would
also,
explain why Keko Ota is on that team.
yeah, and also it's going to be a commentator's nightmare when there are when the Kvists change drivers.
Oh yeah. Tom Blomqvist to Felix Rosenquist. At least Linus Lundqvist isn't driving for this team as well, which he has done in IndyCar.
I will say also, this marks a return for them because Colin Brown and Tom Blomqvist are actually, they were the main lineup for Meyer Shank.
Yes, they were.
So they're back together again.
Yes,
they are.
That
they
is
are.
true. Yeah.
They are what the disco people used to say. Reunited, and it feels so good. Yes.
Oh my goodness!
I had
me.
to.
You had
And once
to.
again,
That's a
I
lot
feel
of
sorry
music
for
references.
once again I feel sorry for anyone not watching the video on that one because you missed out. But yeah.
No, I feel sorry for the people watching the video.
Oh.
God.
There's a reason I had my eyes closed.
Yes. Okay. All right. So Meyer Shank, bit of a return for them. Lamborghini, obviously debut of SC63. We mentioned that. To be honest, I think on the Lamborghini front, I think it would just be fantastic if they can get through this race without too many problems, and then just hopefully finish well. 2023 was a bit. 2024. Sorry, was a bit of a rocky start for Lamborghini. Not quite used to the fact that I'm in 2025. I do apologize.
And also, it should be noted the livery. I think they've gone all in on the Italians.
I think they've certainly gone in on all green.
Well, they actually unveiled their livery. It's basically the only thing that's missing is the Italian hand gestures.
It is still green, isn't it?
Green, red, and white. It's the
Yeah.
It's literally the tricolora.
I have not seen that yet.
Fantastic. That sounds fantastic. Oh my god!
I hope I haven't offended anyone with my pronunciation of the flag, the tricolora.
I think previous references to Italian pronunciation may have offended them already. So if we haven't done, if we haven't done so already, we have now. Let's move on. Let's move on to our next car, and that is the number 85 JDC Miller Motorsports Porsche. This is the banana boat. We have a Indy Next driver making his IMSA debut, and that is, of course, Bryce Aaron. And he will be joining Jimmy Bruni, who we mentioned on the show last week, who is moving to this team from Proton, Tiemann van der Helm, and Pascal Wehrlein.
Yes. Now, for every class, I have not just written down a prediction of mine, but I've also written down one car to watch, one that I think is going to be right up there, perhaps unexpectedly. And this year, I think it's going to be the year of the banana boat. I actually think they stand a chance of winning. Which is a big prediction, because obviously that is not a factory team. But I really believe in that driver lineup. Obviously, you have very experienced, very proven drivers. You got two ex-Formula 1 drivers with Jamiro Bruni and Pascal Wehrlein. Tiemann van der Helm has Daytona experience. He's done it 3 times before. Bryce Aaron is the only one in that team who has not done the Daytona 24 Hours before. And Bryce is... You mentioned his Indy NXT experience in the past. He's done pretty damn well in that. The place I actually know Bryce Aaron from is completely different. I saw him back in 2019 doing a Formula Ford race at Brands Hatch, which is not the usual place you'd expect to find a young American driver, but he actually did the Formula Ford Festival in 2019. So I have actually seen Bryce Aaron racing in person, and he didn't actually do that well on that occasion, but then again, he is extremely young, and obviously he would have been very young at the time. But yeah, I really believe in Bryce Aaron. I think that he's going to be hungry as a young rookie. We know that JDC Miller Motorsports is a well put together team. I think that this is the year of the banana boat, and I genuinely think they have a chance of winning overall.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Chris, any thoughts on the banana boat?
Like I said, don't count them out.
Don't count them out. Very good.
Yeah, don't count them out. They may not have the biggest sponsorship out there, but there's one thing they don't lack, and that's passion. And they can get there. They have a solid enough driver lineup that if they're within a lap in the last few hours, they could contend for at least a podium.
So Jack, we've spoken a lot about our opinions on these cars, and we've made our predictions and stuff. But I'm interested to hear your prediction for the overall victory.
I will be saving my predictions until probably after we go through all the previews.
Are we going through all of the classes first? I thought we were going through the classes and then doing our class prediction.
Well, actually, you know what? Since if you guys wait, do you want to do predictions for the classes?
I mean, it is the week of the roar, so sandbagging is technically allowed.
Sandbagging's allowed. Okay, fair enough. All right, I'll hold on to it. I'll hold on to my predictions.
No, I've said my prediction already. I want to know yours.
Okay, all right. I had written down, so I wrote down my predictions just before the show. I probably should have done that a little bit before, to be honest. Again, a bit rusty on the old podcasting bizzo. But I said for GTP, I said it was going to be the number 10.
Yeah,
and
same here.
I think they are just so good at Daytona. They have Cadillac experience before. Obviously, it is a new car, obviously, and apparently it is quite different to the old car. But really, it's the same idea. It's a big old V8 Cadillac. They know how to race those cars. Such a good team. Wayne Taylor, always a force to be reckoned with. I think it's going to be the number 10 of Ricky Taylor, Felipe Albuquerque, Will Stevens, and Brendan Hartley.
So, Chris, you corrected me earlier when I said you'd made your prediction. Are you going to make it 3 for 3?
Yes.
We're all on the 10 hype train. Oh my goodness.
I'm actually going to be going with the Acura.
Which one?
Either one. If I had to pick which one, I think I'm going to pick the 93.
Wow.
The Phillips 66 HRC US entry. With Renger of the Sands, which is actually how you say Van der Zande in English translated from Dutch. Nick Yellowly, that kid Pillow, I've never heard of him. And
yeah, what's he been up to?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Chris. I thought you were saying you were also predicting the 10, but yeah, that's just me that's just me misconstruing your prediction for the second time. So sorry about that.
All right.
But good to know we're not all on the same car, because it means we can have a little bit of friendly competition when the race starts.
Okay, all right, fair enough. We should probably move it on. We've got a lot to get through, big old entry list, and I want to keep this sort of roughly to an hour. Moving on to LMP2. Yeah, good luck with that. I know.
When did we start this? Like quarter past? We're nearly done.
We've been going for 40 minutes, and we're only on to LMP2.
Yeah.
So we are in for the long haul. I'm glad we started a little bit earlier than normal. Okay, right, so LMP2.
Go.
Okay, we are starting off P2 with last year's winners. That is the 18-era Motorsport car, and they've had almost a complete lineup overhaul from last year, with the only remaining driver being Ryan DL, who this year will be joined by, and I apologize if I butcher this, Tobias Lutke, David Heinemeier Hansen, and Paul-Louis Chatin.
Okay, so the difficulty for me is that we're now getting to the slightly more obscure drivers who I don't have so much experience with. I have tried to do my best to look up these different drivers who I don't know. For example, I don't think I've ever heard of Thomas Lüdke before, and that is because he appears to be mainly a businessman rather than a racing driver. But yeah, I do know Paul-Louis Chatin. Paul-Louis Chatin is a driver who I saw way back in like 2005 or something. No, it would have been later than that. Racing in the... I'm pretty sure it was Paul-Louis Chatin who did the So he was in Eurocup Formula Renault back in the day. I thought he'd done McGann's. I must be thinking of someone else who did the Formula Renault McGann series. But no, I have seen him racing because I saw him racing in the Eurocup Formula Renault 2.0 back in 2011 at Silverstone. And he was actually on the podium in race 2 there, judging by Wikipedia. My memory is not quite that good, but I do remember that he was there.
So I know who like Tobias Luque is actually the bronze driver
Yes.
for this lineup. He replaces Dwight Merriman, and the racing community breathes a heavy sigh of relief. He has run some HSR events, historic racing, and he is actually the CEO of Shopify.
Oh, wow.
Which is the
Oh yeah, I know Shopify.
Yeah, I keep getting annoying adverts for them.
and they've had a bit of controversy themselves with some of the people they showcase.
Let's try and get through this episode without being sued. Yes, that would be good.
So, forgive me for not fully understanding how this works. Sorry, Chris. Does every team in LMP2 have to have a bronze driver?
Yes.
It kind of looks that way.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Sorry, I'll let you get back to what you were saying, Chris.
David Heinemeier Hansen is also back in IMSA. I think since he ran in, I believe he last ran in Prototype Challenge.
That's a while ago.
Back in, I think, 2017, I think it was the last year, the Prototype Challenge. But yeah, and also you can't count out Paul-Loup Chantin. That he is like, whenever LMP2 is mentioned, his name immediately pops up, and yeah, I think you might need to keep an eye on this entry.
I think you certainly will, as obviously they are the defending race winners. I should also mention this year in LMP2, it is all Oreca's, no Ligers, really. I mean, this is basically just a sign of the times that LMP2 has effectively become a spec series. Anyway,
Sadly,
we're going to move on.
It's because the Sean Creech entry, unfortunately, they just couldn't find... They actually... their bronze driver, Lance Wilsey, retired prior to Indianapolis, so that's unfortunately that means that the Sean Creech Ligier is probably destined for historic racing, I'm afraid.
Fair enough. Now, I want to move on to a very important entry in LMP2, and this is PR1 Matheson Motorsports. This is a car that I think you absolutely have to look out for. You always do, because this car is going to be driven by Rodrigo Sales, Matthias Besch, Benjamin Pedersen, and probably the fastest, I'd say probably the fastest non-professional driver in the world, Ben Keating.
Yeah. Le Mans class winner Ben Keating. Everyone who's watched sports car racing for a decent amount of time knows his name. And you know he's good because even though he is not technically a professional driver, they try to, they're not scared of giving him a good amount of seat time. You put Ben Keating in the car and it's in safe hands. Even though he's a bronze, he just gets out and he gets the most out of it,
Or as
Absolutely.
I refer to him, God himself.
Yeah, and
because
it's not like he's so fast.
But yeah, the man is and we'll get to the second part of it, but
yes.
This is not the only car he's going to be driving at Daytona.
Really?
No, yeah, we will get to that. But yeah, I mean, the rest of the PR1 lineup is fantastic as well. So obviously Matthias Besch and Benjamin Pedersen and Rodrigo Sales, there's a decent amount of sports car experience among that lineup as well. And also PR1 have been historically very strong as well. So I think that'll definitely be a lineup that you got to look out for. We should rattle on through the rest of them now. There's a very interesting entry coming up next, and that is Pratt Miller. They're known for their Corvettes, but they're going racing in LMP2, and this is a return to prototype racing for them in quite a long time. The number 73 car will be driven by Chris Cumming, Pietro Fittipaldi, James Rowe Jr., and Callum Ilott.
Yeah, what's that coming over the hill? Is it Chris? It is.
It's Chris.
Yeah, so Pratt Miller, like I said, in all of my classes, I've put down a sorry.
There's nothing funny about this entry at all.
No, everything's fine. Everything's fine.
Oh my gosh. I put that in my show notes as well.
Film it.
You did, didn't you? Yeah. The show notes specifically say Pratt Miller, known for Corvettes, go racing in LMP2, and then in brackets, there is nothing funny at all about this entry. Well done, Jack. So yeah, no, okay. The thing that stood out to me about this entry is, it's good when the highest ranked driver isn't even their Formula One driver. Pietro Fittipaldi was the driver who stood in for Romain Grosjean for Haas after his horrendous accident a couple of years ago. But he's not even the platinum in that team. That's Callum Ilott, who of course has been a Formula One reserve driver, and I saw racing in Formula 2 back in the day. I have put that car down as my one to watch. Obviously, in every class on my show notes, I put down a prediction, my actual prediction for the winner, and a one to watch. And in this case, it is the 73, and not just because there is a driver with a totally not funny name.
Yeah, solid lineup. Of course, Callum Ilott is a Cadillac factory driver. He drives for Jota in the World Endurance Championship, and yeah, I think this might be, as Caitlin said, one to watch.
Yes. Okay, we should probably move it on to our next entry after that, and there's United Autosports. I've got this written down because you've always got to mention United Autosports in an LMP2 conversation. They're always very competitive, and they are bringing two cars to the race this year. That is the number 2 and the number 22. The 2 will be driven by Nick Boulier, Ben Hanley, Garnet Patterson, and Oliver Jarvis. So some good sports car talent in that number 2 car. And the number 22 will be driven by Dan Goldberg, Paul di Resta, Formula 1 talent, Rasmus Lind, and James Allen.
Not that James Allen.
Different James Allen, yeah. No, I remember watching a GP3 race back in the day when James Allen was in it, and my mum was like, that can't be the broadcaster. Nope, it isn't. Completely different guy, completely different nationality. He's an Australian. Yeah, not the same guy at all. But pretty darn talented, and, pretty much everyone in that car is talented. Dan Goldberg, I think he's the bronze, isn't he? He's a strong bronze anyway, from what I know of that team. And then, of course, you have Rasmus Lind, promising young talent. United Autosports is a very professional outfit. You always know that you're getting quality with United Autosports. I think the other lineup proves that as well. Oliver Jarvis, long time. I mean, he was a Corvette factory driver for a long time, wasn't he? And Ben Hanley, people who watched the Daytona 24 Hours when Fernando Alonso did it, people who were participating in Nando Watch, will know Ben Hanley because he was Fernando's teammate in that day, alongside Fernando and Lando Norris. So yeah, great team, both lineups very, very strong. They are also ones to look out for.
And also James Allen was part of that wild photo finish in LMP2 in 2023, I believe, when he was driving for CrowdStrike.
I remember that race as well. That was an incredible finish to that race as well. So obviously a couple of years ago, the LMP2 race lead after 24 hours came down to a sprint to the line. That clip will be on YouTube somewhere. You can go have a look at it, and I recommend everybody does. Moving on to our next team, and this is AF Corsa. Now, AF Corsa know how to run a prototype, as they've actually won, under the Ferrari banner, they have won the last 24 hours of Le Mans. This is, of course, not Le Mans, this is Daytona, but even still, their 88 LMP2 car will be driven by Louis Perez Companc, Dylan Murray, Nicholas Nielsen, and Matteo Vaxiviere.
And if we're talking about drivers who I have seen having some awesome races in the past, Matthew Vaxiviere is up there. I remember going to the World Series by Renault in 2015. He had an awesome fight with Oliver Rowland for Race 1 honours in Formula Renault 3.5. And then the very next year, when it was just Formula V8 3.5, had another great fight with Igor Aruchev, and they ended up colliding, so that was fun. But yeah, also very strong in prototypes. It's the team that stand out to me with that. AF Corsa, as you mentioned, long history with Ferraris, but they also have a history with LMP2 cars, and I mean, I've said this for so many lineups, but you'd be a fool to count them out.
Chris.
Agreed wholeheartedly. They have to be one to watch. Unfortunately, they always seem to have really bad luck. Like in LMP2, but I think they could be contending for a podium.
That's a fair assessment, actually. I think that's a good view of AF Corsa. We'll end off LMP2 now with the last of the entries that I want to touch on today. There are, of course, 12 cars in this class, but we're not going to get round to all of them. And this is AO Racing I want to talk about, which is the
Ayo.
Spike the Dragon, I seem to remember.
Spike the Magic Dragon.
There we go. And this has had a slight lineup change. So Dane Cameron is moving over from Porsche Penske Motorsports back into LMP2 and joining the AO Racing lineup. And of course, we've got to mention it because it's a dragon. You can't not mention the dragon in LMP2. This car will be driven by PJ Hyatt, Dane Cameron, who we mentioned, Johnny Edgar, and I was wondering if Alan Poe was along for the ride as well, and Christian Rasmussen.
Yeah, I noticed your Edgar Allan Poe message in the chat there. Johnny Edgar, funnily enough, I remember him go-karting. There was a...
Really?
Yeah. So I've known about him since he was like 8 years old, honestly. There is a YouTube channel out there called TDI Media that covers a bunch of like UK karting championships and stuff. And I learnt about a lot of drivers, Oliver Behrman, I believe, I first learned about in that championship. So, lots and lots of people come up through that, and Johnny Edgar is just one of those. And of course, his sister Jess Edgar is also a racing driver. But yes, Christian Rasmussen, very competitive. Dane Cameron, sports car legend. PJ Hyatt, I'm not so familiar with, but Spike the Magic Dragon. Great car, fan favorite. Chris has got his finger up. What's up, Chris?
PJ Hyatt, by the way, is a very effective bronze driver. One of the best on the grid, and he's won quite a pole in LMP2 last year. So he actually is also a man of culture who owns several Porsches. Several historic Porsches as well.
Awesome.
You should all take a look at his car collection. It's fantastic.
I just hope the audio quality on the podcast is better than it was for us just then, because I could barely work out what you were saying. Sorry, Chris.
I'm sure it'll be fine. We should probably do our predictions for LMP2. Who would like to start us off?
You go first, Jack. Go on.
All right, I think it's going to be the 52. I think that's such a great team, and it's got Ben Keating on it, and I wouldn't want to have to compete against Ben Keating if I was in one of those other LMP2 cars. PR1, they're just a fantastic team, and that is a fantastic lineup. I think it will be an interesting fight between them and possibly the 18, but 52 for me.
I have gone for the number 22 United Autosports, Dan Goldberg, Paul di Resta, Rasmus Lind, and James Allen. I just think that United Autosports is such a professional lineup. They've won so many endurance races that I can't really bet against them.
And
I've
Chris,
got two.
you got two. Well, they can't both win.
Yeah.
Spike,
Spike. Ayo.
and one we didn't mention, the CrowdStrike entry.
Well, that's probably actually, yeah,
With,
that's a shout.
With George Kurtz, who is a solid bronze driver, Toby Sowery, Maltha Jakobsen, and a certain Mr. Herta.
Colton Herta. Very nice.
Colton Herta.
Who has actually won at Daytona before.
Gotcha.
I think that's a solid prediction, actually. With that, we're moving away from prototypes into something that looks a little bit more like an actual car. And we are, of course, moving on to GTD Pro. There are 12 cars in this class. Risi Competizione with Ferrari, they won last year, but Risi have not turned up this year. So we've got to pick from somebody else to see if we can find a potential winner. And we're going to start us off with Heart of Racing. And the reason I wanted to mention Heart of Racing is because they've changed their number, and it's too cool not to mention. James Bond is not driving for this team, but the car number is 007, which is, of course, a racing number that Aston Martin have used a number of times in sports car racing over the years. This car will be driven by some Heart of Racing regulars in Ross Gunn, Alex Riberas, Roman De Angelis, and Marco Sorensen.
No. You can't say their names like that. It's Gunn, Ross Gunn, Riberas, Alex Riberas, De Angelis, Roman De Angelis, and Sorensen, Marco Sorensen. That's how you have to say it with the 007.
Oh, goodness, mate. Obviously, Heart of Racing, they're also going to be involved in running the Valkyrie, which would have been running in GTP, but they're not going to be there for Daytona. I believe the Valkyrie will be making its debut at Sebring. Qatar, sorry, my apologies. But yeah, so its IMSA debut will be Sebring, but it will not be at Daytona. I think Heart of Racing, they are a fantastic team, running, of course, with the Aston Martin Vantage. All of those drivers are very experienced. Of course, that is also with a very good cause, so they donate money to the Seattle Children's Hospital. Fantastic entry, and I think it will be a very competitive entry as well.
Yeah, for sure. That's why they're in GTD Pro, because they are a professional team with professional drivers. I'm also excited by Roman De Angelis in the entry list, because the first time I ever heard of Roman De Angelis was when he was making a splash in the support race at Daytona. That was a couple of years ago now, and I still remember being very impressed by him as a youngster. So, yeah, you're right. They're a contender, but then again, so's the whole class.
I'm not sure how successful the Vantage has been at Daytona, but I think Heart of Racing is just such a fantastic team that I think they will be able to overcome anything on that front. Although front engine cars do tend to they have had a history of doing quite well at Daytona, which we'll mention in a second. Moving on to FAF Motorsports, this is a manufacturer change. This is going to be their third manufacturer in 3 years. They used to run Porsches. Last year they were running a McLaren. This year they have changed to Lamborghini. They were actually on the verge of closing their doors, I understand, but they picked up a Lamborghini deal after Iron Lynx and Iron Dames parted ways with the Italian manufacturer. This car will be driven by Andrea Caldarelli, Jordan Pepper, Marco Mappelli, and James Hinchcliffe, who returns as one of the endurance drivers to the team from last year. And I think it'll be interesting to see a Lamborghini in plaid colours, if that's what they're running with this year.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how a commentator does. I don't know if James Hinchcliffe actually has any driving experience. I am joking. Before anyone in the comments calls me a friggin' casual, I do know James Hinchcliffe. But no.
Yes.
No, the Pafaf car is the one that I've put down as my one to watch. Andrea Caldarelli, Jordan Pepper, Marco Mappelli, James Hinchcliffe, all of them competitive. Everything that I said about the uncertainty of Lamborghini, that only applies to GTP and very much does not apply to GTD Pro. Of course, Lamborghini won back in the day with GRT Grasser. They are it's a car that Daytona suits, and I think that these drivers are very suited to Lamborghinis as well. Obviously, Andrea Caldarelli, again, one of the best Lamborghini drivers of all time. I see him in the same light as Mirko Bortolotti. I'm sure they've been teammates before, yeah, that's my one to watch. That car.
Yeah. It should also be noted that the Daytona 24, correct me if I'm wrong, was actually the first 24-hour race that Lamborghini ever won. When they won that race a couple of years ago, that was the first time that Lamborghini had done it. Yeah, it was, yeah. And also, James Hinchcliffe, he's a fellow podcast host. I'll plug another podcast here, even though we've actually got no affiliation to them at all. I just like it. Off Track with Hinch and Rossi, of which he is one of the 3 hosts of that show. So there's an interesting little piece of trivia for you before we move on to what used to be a Lamborghini team but isn't anymore. It's Paul Miller Racing, who are bringing 2 cars to the event. They've expanded their efforts on that front. They're not a Lamborghini team, they're a BMW team, as they have been for the last couple of years. The number 1 car will be driven by Madison Snow, Neil Verhagen, Connor D. Filippi, who you would know as a BMW driver normally, but is not this time, and Kelvin van der Linde finishes off the lineup for the number 1, and the number 48 will be driven by Dan Harper, Max Hesse, Jesse Kron, and Augusto Farfus. So a couple of BMW regulars for that one as well.
Dan Harper, I always think of as a Porsche driver. He used to Carrera Cup GB here in the UK. But yeah, I'm actually gonna call you out quickly, Jack. You've written Madison Snome.
Yes, I have on my show notes. That is correct.
Whoopsie daisy.
Typo.
You've been snomed.
You've been snomed.
So it should be noted that Dan Harper, I do believe he has already won this year.
Has he?
Has he? What's he won?
I believe he was part of the driver lineup at Dubai just a week ago.
He was. I've just had a look at that.
Weekend.
So the other 24-hour race that's happened recently, this was originally in my miscellaneous points section, but we might defer those to next week because we're on a very busy show this week. That was the 777 WRT car with Al Manar Racing that won the Dubai 24 Hours. That was Darren Lung. Al Faisal Al Zubair, I've completely butchered that, I know that. Ben Tuck, Dan Harper, and Max Hesse, who also joins the lineup for this race as well.
Congrats to them. I saw absolutely none of it. I was busy doing something else.
I also didn't see any of that.
I saw a little bit of it.
Yeah. So they're kind of on a WRT or BMW actually. They're on sort of a strong run already in 2025, and some of those drivers were part of that race winning lineup. And let's see if they can carry the success into Daytona as well. Shall we move on to what is probably BMW's direct rival?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to talk about a couple of the Mercedes entries, and we start with car number 69. You'll have permission to say nice.
Nice.
Oh, kart. Sorry,
nice.
I'm used to being in the I'm used to talking about go-karts more than I am talking about cars these days. So this is the Get Speed Mercedes, and that will be driven by Maxime Martin, Fabian Schiller, Lucas Stoltz, and Anthony Bartone. Bartone. Which is it? I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I do like a good Mercedes. As you mentioned before, front-engine cars tend to go pretty well at Daytona. They tend to have a lot of straight-line speed, a lot of grunt, the unbalanced nature doesn't affect them as badly as it would at one of the twistier circuits. So, I think the Mercedes is one of the cars to have at Daytona. I actually did a race in a Mercedes at Daytona way back on the sim, 2018 that would have been, and did terribly. But Oh well, we finished.
Well, I think also Mercedes is with their GT3, the AMG GT. It is probably one of the most competitive GT3 cars available.
Yeah.
And it's actually won a couple of times in the last couple of years at Daytona. That's just how strong that car is. So I thought it was worth mentioning. Chris, do you have anything to say on the 69 car?
Solid lineup, and I believe they actually picked up some driver. I think they picked up some people from Korthoff, if I remember correctly, but I could be very, very wrong.
Well, I mean, Maxime Martin and people like Maxime Martin and Lucas Stoltz, they're Mercedes factory regulars, so that doesn't surprise me. Although I think Get Speed weren't on the grid for last year, and they are for this year. So it's sort of, I think it might actually be their debut at Daytona. If not, it's been a couple of years since they've done it. Although I'll move it on to a team that certainly not on debut. This is a very, very experienced team and probably one of the favorites in GTD Pro for this year. They've had a bit of a name change. They used to know them as Sun Energy 1. For this year, they are 75 Express, and this car will be driven by Kenny Habul, Michael Grenier, Maro Engel, and Jules Gounon. I think you'll agree. You'll agree this is strong.
Julian Goujon.
This is such a strong lineup. Jules Gounon, Kenny Habul, they've been together for quite some time. They've had plenty of success at the Bathurst 12 Hour, which we will talk about at some point on this show, and they have had plenty of success in IMSA and at Daytona. This has got to be a car to watch. I think out of any of the Mercedes in this race, this is probably the strongest one.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's very, very reliable. And as we've been talking about, if Mercedes is going to win a race this year, I think this is going to be the one. So you're absolutely right.
Chris, anything to say on 75 Express?
Well, I'm just going to say this. I wonder why you put the 75 in the notes.
Yeah, no, who would have thought? No, it's absolutely one of the most competitive cars in the field.
It's also the most Australian.
It is one of the most Australian. Kenny Habul, he is a Bathurst local, and has found a bit of success at that track as well.
Literally lives on Conrod Strait, if I remember correctly.
He does live on Conrod Strait. That's true. I think I walked past his house when I was last at Bathurst. At last at the Bathurst 12 Hour, anyway.
Does that mean if he wins, he's gonna streak again? Is he gonna do the whole lap in his underwear again?
Oh my gosh.
He actually did. I'm not even joking. He actually did that after he won Bathurst. I think in 22 or 23 he did that.
Well, I'll be interested. I'll be interested to see if he does it at Daytona, especially in January. With that, I think we should plus 75 by 2 and move the engine to the rear and take a couple of cylinders out to talk about Porsche. And we're going to talk about a fan favourite. This is AO Racing. This is Rexy, the green car. AO, yes, and they've got a dinosaur. This is the second AO car we're going to talk about. And this is going to be Lauren Heinrich, Klaus Bachler, and Alessio Picariello driving the number 77 Porsche.
The defending IMSA champions.
IMSA champions, that's true.
And I do believe, and I do declare that they can possibly do it again in 2025.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. How do you reckon they'll do it at Daytona, though?
Quite well. They finished third last year, I believe. So I think they'll be contenders.
And Porsche are also fairly recent winners at the Daytona 24 Hours as well, if I remember correctly.
Wait, was it last year that they had the problems with the BOP? I'm not sure.
I think I'm trying to think what year it was. I know it was one of the years. I think it actually might have been 2022 or 2023, where it was a fight between the two Porsches down to the final lap.
The FAF and the KCMG car, yeah.
The FAF and KCMG, and I can't remember off the top of my head what year it was.
Which, by the way, was a complete and utter banger of a finish.
Well, it certainly was. I mean, they banged into each other, so
Literally.
naturally it would. Yes, no, it would. That is certainly true. Should we move on to our final? This is a our final edition for our GTD Pro list that I've got. There's 12 cars in the class, but we haven't mentioned all of them, obviously, because again, it would be too long. This is a particularly relevant entry if you live in my part of the world. I live in Australia, but we're going to talk about a couple of Kiwis in this. So Trackhouse, they're bringing a car to GTD Pro. They're racing with TF Sport as well. And I should mention, for this car, it's double duties for Ben Keating because one Rolex 24 at Daytona was too easy. So he's decided to make it a bit harder for himself. And he's going to be driving along Connor Zilic and two exports from this part of the world. We've shipped them out of the Supercars series. They're not Australians, but they've done a lot of racing in Australia. That is, of course, Scott McLaughlin and Shane Van Gisbergen.
Yeah, I actually didn't realize when I looked at the entry list that Ben Keating was on it twice. I didn't notice that. But yeah, very, very... I mean, that's fantastic, and I hope he does well. I guess it does double his chances of getting a result, but it also doubles his duty. So,
his duties, yeah.
I also think that Scotty Mack and Shane Van Gisbergen, not just two of the best GT drivers, but probably two of the best drivers in the world right now. You're absolutely right to put that on this list, and I, for one, am very excited to see how that car does.
Chris?
In a word, stacked.
Absolutely stacked.
Like, first, you have God himself, Ben Keating. Then you have Gizzy, who can drive pretty much anything. Like I said, he also, I think he actually spends his off time, racing around with his mates in New Zealand in those, banger cars. Old banger Ford Falcons and Combos and the like. Scotty, of course, he won the pole for the 500. Has the fastest, I think he had the current fastest single lap, or fastest 4-lap average at the Speedway on pole day last year. And this kid, Connor Zilic, who is a dynamo in whatever he's in. He almost won the ARCA Championship. He's won in MX5 Cup. He's won in, he actually won in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. And he's going to be driving full-time for Junior Motorsports in the WeatherTech number 88 in Xfinity. And Shane will be running in the WeatherTech number 88 in the Cup Series.
It's such a stacked lineup as that Trackhouse lineup, it must be said. But that brings us to the end of at least my GTD Pro selections from the massive list of 12. And I think it's time for our predictions. I can go first if you like. I didn't, funnily enough, among my own list of cars that I wanted to talk about, I didn't mention my prediction. So I'm going to now, and that is going to be the number 12, Vassar Sullivan. Oh, so actually, no, never mind. That was for the other class. I've spoiled my own prediction. Never mind. Okay. I picked the wrong GTD class. It's not good at all. Again, still getting back into the swing of the old podcasting, bizzo. Fantastic. Okay, no, actual prediction. Not really any surprise for GTD Pro. I'm picking 75. Just how can you fault that lineup? It's so experienced, all brilliant GT drivers. It's in a Mercedes as well, one of the strongest cars on the grid. And I think you'd be a fool to discount them. I'll get to my GTD predictions when we actually do
Yeah.
GTD, but for GTD Pro, it's 75 for me.
Okay, well, I'm not sure. See, I've actually I've done a Chris. I've gone for one that's not on the short list that you've prepared. I've actually gone for the number 3 Corvette, and I'm surprised that you didn't bring up Corvette Racing by Pratt Miller Motorsports because, again, extremely competitive lineup. Corvette always goes well here, and of course you've got the lineup of Antonio Garcia, longtime Corvette factory driver, Alexander Sims coming over from BMW, and Daniel Juncadella, who I know as a Mercedes driver. That's quite a lineup. I'm actually pretty amazed that you didn't include that on the shortlist, Jack.
Well, the reason I didn't include it is because there are so many strong entries in
Yeah.
this class that if we went through all of them, we would be here for years. I'm actually surprised. If any of the audience hasn't died of old age, I appreciate you for staying alive until the end.
Yeah.
Chris. Chris, what's your prediction?
Actually, one of the predictions was actually going to be something I was going to bring up last week.
Okay.
That's the number 64 Multimatic Ford Mustang,
Right.
which has had a change in driver lineup. Ben Barker was supposed to be in the 64 and has now been replaced by Daytona 500 winner from 2022, Austin Cindric.
Indeed.
Now, provided the bits stay on the Ford Mustang this time, I think they can be pretty stout. I'm also going with a Corvette, possibly the 3 or the 4, or the number 14 Lexus.
I'm gonna do my obnoxious European fan impression. You know, Austin Cindric has to turn right in this as well, right? Like, how's he gonna manage?
Oh dear. Right, with that, let's move on to the other GTD class. 22 cars entered into this class, but we're going to talk about a bit less than that because, again, we actually need to finish this today. We're going to start with the defending race winners. That's 57 Winwood. This is another Mercedes car. Slight lineup change as Lucas Auer replaces Daniel Morad on this team. He'll be joined by Russell Ward, Philip Ellis, and Indy Donche. Donche. There we go.
Yes, Indy Donche, who I know, again, from the World Series by Renault. This is getting predictable. Lucas Auer, I know because he was in European Formula 3 many, many years ago. Would have raced with Felix Rosenqvist in that, come to think of it. Philip Ellis, not classic, but like long-term BMW driver, I think. And Russell Wood, who I think I've seen racing a Mercedes in the past. But yeah, they're the defending race winners for a reason. And you've also noted down that Lucas Auer is replacing Daniel Morad. You can't go very wrong with Lucas Auer, so that's fine.
Yes. Chris.
And actually, Daniel Morad is going to the number 32 Mercedes with Korthoff. In that lineup, I believe. Let me check We are checking. Yes, he is. He's in the Korthoff Competition Motors MG. With the Mercedes, with Seth Lucas, Kenton Cook, Maxi Gutz, and of course Mr. Morad himself. And also, apparently, he will be keeping Winward will be keeping the Weeb sticker on the inside the car this time. The anime girl that actually wasn't. That isn't staying with Daniel Morad. That's actually staying because apparently that might be their good luck charm.
Is it staying in the car because they can't get it off?
Leave it.
I would imagine it'd be such a thing. Anyway, right, so...
No, actually, it's because they won the championship in 2024 with
the sticker.
with the sticker on, and yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, well, it was good that you mentioned the checking thing, to use a Ferrariism, because we're actually going to talk about Ferrari now. And we move on to AF Corsa, who are bringing 2 Ferraris to GTD, and one of those cars contains Lilo Wadu, and another of those cars contains Arthur Leclerc, who is a brother of, I don't know, some sort of niche Ferrari driver. You might have heard of him. His name is Charles, who knows? Anyway, Lilo Wadu will be joined by Simon Mann, Alessandro Pierguidi, and Kay Cozzolino in the 21 car. Lilo Wadu, obviously the first woman ever to win an FIA World Endurance Championship race, which is also in a Ferrari. And the number 50 car will be driven by Custodio Toledo, Riccardo Agostini, Arthur Leclerc, and Conrad Lorenzen.
Well, I want to give a quick shout out to my girlfriend Eileen. I don't know if she would have listened this far through, but she did listen to the last episode. But she is a big fan of Charles Leclerc, so I'm sure that she will be here cheering on young Arthur. And I, too, did not know that he was in this lineup. I must have missed him when I was looking through before. So that is very, very cool. And yeah, always good to have Ferraris in the grid. Obviously, Ferrari has a long history with Daytona. And like you say, some real star-spangled talent in that one with Lilo Wadu, Alessandro Pierguidi, Arthur Leclerc, etc., etc.
Speaking of star-spangled and lineups, they've actually unveiled their livery, and it is a giant America.
Is it?
Is it really? I want to have a look at that. Hold on. Livery.
That was just a throwaway comment from me, but I might have accidentally made a very good joke.
Oh yes, I've just seen it. So is this on the 21 car? Is it?
It's the 50.
It's the 50. Okay, fair enough. They have actually. It looks like they actually have a history of doing that at Daytona. Yes. They've had a couple of American-themed liveries.
Also, is Riccardo Agostini related to the great Giacomo?
I was wondering that, actually. I can look it up quickly.
Former British Formula One driver, in fact.
And, of course, several-time motorbike world champion.
Yes.
It does not seem to say anything about that on his Wikipedia page, so I'm going to assume no.
Okay. Fair enough, then. So there's AF Corsa, running some GT cars alongside their prototypes. Actually, I think combined with their GT efforts and their prototype efforts, they'll probably be one of the biggest teams on the entire Daytona 24 grid. But we shall move it on to Aston Martin with the 27 Heart of Racing car. This is their GTD entry as opposed to their GTD Pro car. This car won the race a couple of years ago, and they actually beat the GTD Pro race winners on the road, although it's a completely different driver to when they did that. So this car will be driven by Casper Stevenson, Tom Gamble, Zachary Robichon, and Mattia Drudi.
Casper Stevenson, I seem to remember, unless I'm very much mistaken, my mum is friends with his girlfriend, I think. This is completely irrelevant to anything, but there's that. Tom Gamble, former Ginetta racer, Zachary Robichon, very successful and experienced endurance driver, and Matteo Drudi, I'm pretty sure I saw racing Porsches a long time ago as well. Experienced lineup, Heart of Racing, very, very good. Again, I've said this with so many lineups, I knew that I would. One to look out for.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. Chris, anything to say on Heart of Racing?
Like I've said, don't count them out.
Don't count them out. That's very true. I reckon let's move it on to a Corvette. So this is DXDT. They're making their Daytona debut. And Pipo Durrani, we mentioned him earlier in the show. He will be moving over from Action Express Racing to join this team. This is the number 36 Corvette, and this is going to be driven by Sally Yollock Alex Udell, Charlie Eastwood, and Pipo Derani, as I just mentioned.
Yeah, again, several drivers that I've seen racing in person. Sally Olich, who I've seen racing in an Aston Martin back in the day, won one of the International GT Open races that I saw at Silverstone 2016. Charlie Eastwood has done Carrera Cup GB, and Pipo Derani, of course, used to race a Nissan in the IMSA Weathertech Sportscar Championship back when they were in the DPI category. Although I have to admit, I'm not so familiar with Alex Udell.
Alec Udell is a former Carrera Cup Series champion. Pipo Derani is a multi-time IMSA champion with Cadillac. Although 2023 would be questionable, but he's very quick. He won Daytona with Extreme Speed Motorsports in 2016 overall. And also the team itself, DXET, is actually coming over from the from GT World Challenge Americas. So this is a big step for them, and hopefully they do well with their Corvette.
Very good. I want to bring it back to Ferrari now that we've talked about DXDT. And we're going to move on to the number 47 Cetilar Ferrari. This is an IMSA regular. Cetilar, you'll be very familiar with that blue livery, that blue Ferrari. Always nice to see a blue Ferrari from time to time. Lorenzo Patrese will be making his IMSA debut with this team. Guess who his dad is? And he's going to be joined by Antonio Fuoco, Niccolo Lacourt, and Roberto Lacourt.
Well, considering I saw him racing at Spa, well, not saw him in person, but considering he raced at Spa a couple of years ago with a certain Riccardo Patrese, I think that may answer that question for you. But don't overlook Antonio Fuoco. He may not be as familiar a name, but he has Formula 2 experience and he's also very competitive. So he may not quite have the star name that Lorenzo has, but I think he is the most experienced racer in that team.
And I believe he's also won in a Ferrari before.
Antonio Fuoco has won in a Ferrari before, and he won a certain race in France, I seem to remember. Le Mans?
It's on the tip of my tongue.
Good old lemons.
Very good. We needed 24 hours of Lemons winner to race at Daytona one day.
Yes.
Or in the actual Le Mans.
No, we needed 24 hours of Lemons entry.
That's true.
With the three of us.
That's true. Oh yeah, it's three of us. That would be good. That'd be good. I think that would draw the crowds. Anyway, something that actually will draw the crowds because it's a fan favorite car is the Iron Dames team. So this is a switch from Lamborghini back to Porsche for this team. This is the all-female lineup. This is the 83, and it will be driven by Sarah Bovey, Rahul Fry, Michelle Gatting, and Karen Gaillard.
Gaillard, yeah.
Gaillard.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how they go as well. I didn't know they were switching back to a Porsche. Do we know kind of why that is? I guess just
because they cut ties with Lamborghini.
As God intended.
Yeah, so it was Faf that picked up the Lamborghini contract.
Good old Pafaf.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so and they're also moving to Porsche in the FIA World Endurance Championship too, so they're going to be partnering with Manthey.
Yeah, they're taking over the 91 entry, I believe.
Yeah, but I think so. Manthey is still going to be there, and I think EMA are still going to be involved in that as well.
Oh, they're taking the 92, the pure car.
Yeah,
I believe.
Yes, so that's the all-female lineup on the grid for the Rolex 24 at Daytona.
The favorite.
And I think we should...
I'm going with them.
You're going to go with the 83, that's your favorite?
I'm going with the Dames.
Okay, wow, that's...
Give me my Dames, damn it!
Yeah, I think it'd be fantastic to see them win at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. That'd certainly be a historic moment for that team.
Also, I want merch.
You want merch? Yeah.
James merch.
I do want some IMSA merch, actually. I'd love to have some Rexy merch, that's for sure. But a Dames merch would certainly be fantastic as well. I want to wrap up GTD. So Andy Lally will be retiring after this race. He's going to be doing it with Magnus Racing, though. It's going to be in an Aston Martin, and he'll be joined by John Potter, Spencer Pumpelly, and Nicky Thiem at the end of a career for one of the most successful drivers at the Rolex 24 at Daytona.
And also the final race for the team as well. Magnus is shutting down.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that.
And Andy Lally is actually going to be becoming the president of the Trans Am series.
We should say that by the team leaving, we don't mean Nicky Thiem. He is going to be sticking around, but no.
He'll be sitting around with Aston Martin, yes.
Yeah. There's no I in team except with Nicky and where there's 4.
I think no, there's at least 6 eyes.
Including the 2 on his face.
Yeah. 2 in Nicky, 2 in team, 2 on his face. Yep, there we go.
Yes.
Don't ask him to wear a pair of glasses. Okay. Yeah, so that is that team. I think we should move on to some predictions, and moving on to the predictions gives us gives me an opportunity
Jack,
to.
I wonder who you're going to predict for the win.
Yeah, it's the number 12 Vasser Sullivan Lexus. I didn't mention that in the main list, but this car's going to be driven by Parker Thompson, Frankie Montecalvo, Kyle Kirkwood, and Jack Hawksworth. For some reason, I've written Jack Hawkston on my show notes.
Jack Hawkstone.
So I'm thinking of Jeremy Clarkson's logo. This isn't sponsored, but I'm wearing his shirt. If you can see on the YouTube broadcast, I'm wearing a Diddley Squad shirt. I think that's what put me in mind of it. Anyway, so yes, so this car I didn't mention in the main lineup, but I think it's one of the strongest teams in GTD. They have had plenty of success with that Lexus, even though that Lexus is one of the oldest cars on the current grid. This car has been around for a very long time, but I still think it's competitive, and I still think it's within a shout of the Rolex 24 victory.
Yeah, I agree, but I have gone for the number 36, the DXDT Corvette. I think that would be a very popular winner. I think I'm not so familiar with Alex Udell, as I said, but Sally Jolich, Charlie Eastwood, and Pipo Durrani, very safe hands. We also didn't mention my one to watch that I put down, which is the 120 Wright Motorsports car. In my notes I've written, I don't know the other co-drivers so much, but Ayhan Changuden is awesome in a Porsche, another Turkish
yes,
star.
he is.
Along with Sally Jolich. So that's my one to look out for, but my actual prediction for the class win is the 36 DXDD Racing.
That's a great shout, actually, especially with Guven as well. I think I saw him first at the Bathurst 12 Hour, and he did quite well on that. Chris, you mentioned yours before, but would you like to mention it again?
I've got a second one now.
You've got a second one now. You can't have
That's
two.
not how predictions work.
That's not how predictions work. Go for it anyway. Let's hear it.
I'm going with the 66 Gradient Ford Mustang.
Oh, so you've actually gone for two Ford Mustangs.
Which is Till Bechtelsheimer, Joey Hand, Tatiana Calderon, and Harry Tignall.
Strong.
Spark Destroyer, friend of the show, is going to absolutely love you for picking two Fords. Spark, if you're listening, you've got yourself a Ford fan. Okay, so there are our predictions.
And also the Dames.
And the Dames, yes, that is true. So there are our predictions for the Rolex 24 at Daytona for this year, and there's all the entrants that we believe are notable. Obviously, we couldn't go through every single one of them. We would have loved to, but we would have been here all day, and also I'd be very surprised if you've made it to the end of this one, a whopping hour and 37 minutes at the time of recording. Thank you very much for sticking with us. We have some miscellaneous stories and points that we missed and won't be covering this week, so we're actually going to cover it next week. So, because we've already run for a very long time. Some wonderful entrants. I'm looking forward to the Raw. I'm looking forward to the race. Do you guys have any final thoughts you'd like to share?
What's that coming over the hill? Sorry.
Leave it. Leave it, leave it, leave
Out.
it.
Out.
And we're off the air everywhere. Thank you very much for tuning in regardless. My name is Jack McKenzie, and I have been joined by the wonderful Chris Whitfield and Caitlin Penny Commentary. The links to their socials will be in the description. They do some wonderful things on the internet as well. Enjoy the 24, guys. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Ta-ra!